And it is time for Jumpstart, and today we're at a Chicago museum that's all about the influence of famous American writers, as they say, from Tupac to Twain, from Dickinson to Douglas.
Yeah, let's go live now to the American Writers Museum to learn more about it and get a peek at its newest exhibit called American Prophets. We're joined now by the museum's president, Carrie Cranston. Carrie, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Well, we're doing really well. We are going to get into a little bit more about that new exhibit, American Prophets, in just a second. But first, can you just give us an overall understanding of what the museum does and what people can expect if they do pay a visit?
Sure. The American Writers Museum is a really fun and interactive space that celebrates all of American writing from, as you mentioned, Tupac to Twain. We look at the significance of writers and how they impact our history and our culture. And there are things here from touchscreens to typewriters and a lot of ways for people to interact with that history and with the present. And so it's really a lot of fun and engagement, and we just find that visitors really love the experience.
And Jackie mentioned this, but one of the reasons we're there with you today is because you have a new exhibit called American Prophets. What is it all about?
It's about the intersection of writers, religion, and culture. So it's actually something that underpins our whole society that people don't always think about or maybe don't want to talk about, but it's actually a really interesting way to explore writing and the significance of writers in our culture and how they interact with us. So we have a number of borrowed and really interesting artifacts for this exhibit. For example, Samira Ahmed is a Chicago-based writer, and she has loaned us this amulet, which is a wonderful piece from her family. It was her grandmother's and had given it to her, and inside of that amulet is a rolled up small piece of paper with a Muslim prayer of protection. And what's interesting is Samira writes young adult fiction, and she has included both the idea of that amulet and that prayer within her work. So this is how we start to see how things are reflected in the work of writers, and then how we learn about other cultures and other belief systems through our writers very often. So when we read a story from someone that might be from a different background or a different religious belief system, then we start to understand each other better. Other famous writers like Flannery O'Connor, they have loaned us her rosary and holy water bottle. She was a devout Catholic, a very famous writer who influenced American culture, and it was something part of her everyday life. She would get up and go to Mass every day at 7 a.m. and then she would write for 3 hours. So, you know, it was a hugely important part of who she was. And so there are a number of writers where we start to see that intersection of maybe their own belief systems or the belief systems around them and how it comes out in their writing. And then we're trying to look at it through a number of interactive elements as well that look at things like song and humor, and where do we see these opportunities for people to discuss religion, or where we see expressions of religious thought or spirituality. So like movies like Groundhog Day that people might not think about.
So much to get to.
I'm so sorry.
Let's check in with you later.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
We've got a lot more to talk about, but it is so
Okay,
interesting
sounds
because I
good.
do think like the spiritual practices of writers are so intersected with the practice itself of creating the art. So anyway, we've got a lot more to talk about as we go along this morning. Thank you so much, Carrie Cranston from the American Writers Museum.
Welcome back. It is time for Jumpstart this morning, and we're live at a hidden gem to many in downtown Chicago. It's called the American Writers Museum, aiming to celebrate American voices. And joining me now is Carrie Cranston, the museum's president. Carrie, great to have you here on the show. Well, let's start with the American authors that have made huge contributions in the fantasy and sci-fi realm. Can you tell us about the display?
Sure. This is part of our new American Prophets exhibit that looks at the intersection of religion and writers and culture. And within that exhibit, we look at fantasy and science fiction writers and how they talk about religion in ways that is imaginative, how they take their own religious background and maybe look at theoretical or new ideas. And so one example would be N.K. Jemisin, who's a major New York Times bestselling author for her series of books, The Fifth Season, etc. And what's fun about this exhibit is the posters up here talk about some of these different works, and I can jump down onto this screen and really dig through a whole bunch of information. We had N.K. Jemisin and some of the other best-selling science fiction writers talk about this topic just a few months ago. And so it's really fun to be able to dig into these things. her own religious background, her own upbringing are things that informed her imagination about a whole new world where people had a very different take on creation myths and on other ideas that again are always influenced by what we live through here. So it's a great way for people to explore the topic. Another great example would be Ursula K. Le Guin, who is a major award-winning author and a huge influence in our culture. And The Left Hand of Darkness is a book that really explores the ideas of Taoism, and that was something that was very important to Ursula K. Le Guin. And in this exhibit, we're very fortunate because we not only have this, but we also have the ability to explore through some artifacts the history of how important that was to her. So Ursula K. Le Guin actually translated the important work of the Tao Te Ching for American readers. She did that back in 1997, and this text is the original text that she translated, which was published in 1898 here in Chicago. And you know, she was an amazing author who really took these different philosophical ideas and tried to express them in her works.
Oh, Carrie Cranston, so much more to explore there at the American Writers Museum. We look forward to seeing you next hour.
Now time for my favorite part of the morning, Jumpstart. This morning we're live at a hidden gem in downtown Chicago. The American Writers Museum aims to celebrate American voices. And joining me now is Carrie Cranston, the museum's president, and Africa Brown, daughter of the poet and playwright Oscar Brown Jr. So thank you so much for joining me once again, Carrie. Tell us a little bit about Oscar Brown's work and how people can experience it at the museum.
Well, in our Chicago gallery, we've now added Oscar Brown Jr. to our entire pantheon of Chicago writers who are so important to understanding the city through the voices of our writers, and including our journalists like Mike Royko and Roger Ebert. And Oscar Brown Jr. was a playwright and a poet and a lyricist, and we're very lucky to have his daughter, Africa Brown, here to talk about him.
Hello, thank you, Carrie. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. It is such an honor to have my father be a part of this exhibit. And there are just so many things that I want to say, but we don't have a lot of time. But I want to say that it's just deeply meaningful for our family to have him be a part of this exhibit and to have his voice recognized as a cultural force and a creator. He was definitely a groundbreaking legend, and he was recorded with greats like Nina Simone, Diana Ross, and more recently Julia Bullock. She won a Grammy for her debut album, and she used my father's song Brown Baby. So this is just a great honor. He was a fearless critic of justice, injustice, and Brown was often kept from the mainstream spotlight due to his political beliefs. Yet his legacy shines brighter than ever today. His album Sin and Soul was a true classic. His original compositions reflected his experiences growing up in Chicago's South Side. And he was just hailed by playwright Lorraine Hansberry as a startling genius. So it is just an honor for our family, and I really hope that people come to this museum because it is a hidden gem and it's wonderful. And you can learn more about Oscar Brown Jr. and our family. And thank you so much.
Oh, Africa, I would love to come to the American Writers Museum now and learn a little bit more about your dad. And I know that there are so many events at the American Writers Museum, so hopefully there will be an opportunity for folks to come by and maybe get a chance to meet you and hear, directly from you about your dad's career, because wow, he sounds like an incredible person. All right, Chicago's American Writers Museum has a new exhibit exploring the role of religion and spirituality in written works. So the exhibit, titled American Prophets, features interactive displays with more than 100 different styles of writing, from books to movies to songs as well. Joining us now to talk about all about the new exhibit, American Prophets, is Program Director Allison Sansoni. Allison, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
All right,
I'm here in the American Prophets exhibit where...
Go ahead, Allison. Where are you right now within the American Prophets exhibit?
So I'm here in the spirituality and song section, which explores the role that spirituality, faith, and religion play in American songwriting. So we have had a great deal of programming for this exhibit beginning in March and April, and we've looked at how religion has affected comedy writing, how it's affected horror writing. We're now taking a look at songwriting. So we have an artifact here from Luis Perez of Los Lobos that features in one of his best known songs, Saint Behind the Glass. So this is the Santo Niño de Atocha statue that he wrote about in that song. We have a program coming up on Monday with the writer Alan Light, who's a music journalist and former editor of Vibe and Spin, who's going to be talking about Jeff Buckley and Leonard Cohen's song Hallelujah, as well as the role that spirituality plays in American songwriting. And so that program is going to take place here in our Readers Hall at 6 o'clock. You can see all of our upcoming programs on our website at AmericanWritersMuseum.org.
What can folks do, Allison, inside of the Readers Room and the Readers Wall? I'm just curious what kind of interactive displays they'll see in that space.
Sure. So they'll see mostly displays that explore the way that readers and writers connect. So newspapers, magazines, publications. One of the American Prophets exhibit pieces is Harold Ramis's brochure about Buddhism. He was raised Jewish and but often described himself as Buddha-ish. And he would give this primer about Buddhism to people who were curious about it. So we have a copy of it here. People can explore that. They can also explore the role that Sanjay Patel's Hindu faith plays in his work, including the animated show Sanjay's Super Team. If there's any parents watching this morning, they might have seen that with their kids.
Yes.
So this is the bell that actually features in that show. You actually hear that sound.
Lovely. Allison Sansoni for us at the American Writers Museum. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for taking us through the new exhibit, which is called American Prophets. The American Prophets exhibit runs through November of next year at the American Writers Museum right on Michigan Avenue. Tickets are $16. It is free for kids 12 and younger to attend.